Hi, welcome back. It's Adrian, the MountTinMan. It's April 17th, 2022, which means it's 2 weeks out after I ran the Umstead 100, which was my first 100-mile ultra marathon. I ran that race in 23 hours and 40 minutes. I have not done any running since then. My Achilles, both of my Achilles kind of flared up during the race, particularly my left one. And so I've been doing some rehab stuff. I have this TENS unit, which, does a little electric stimulation, kind of get the blood flowing to the Achilles. And that's been helping a lot. I started off with a huge knot on the back of my Achilles. Now I can feel it, but to look at it, you can't really see it anymore. So that's good. And the timing works out really well because starting this week, I'll be starting my training for my next 100-mile ultra marathon, which is going to be the Midstate Massive in October. And that starts in New Hampshire, goes through Massachusetts, kind of touches Connecticut, and then goes back up north a little bit into Massachusetts. And there are a couple of reasons I'm doing that race, but the main reason is that I'm from New Hampshire and my parents live in New Hampshire, so they are going to crew for me for that race as well. They crewed for me at the Umstead 100. So speaking of New Hampshire and my races and things like that coming up, I am going to be doing the Mount Washington Road Race, which is in June, I think the 18th, somewhere around there. I've done that race before. I kind of have a little bit of a history, not a good and bad history with that race. Back in, I can't remember, 2006 maybe. Well, to go back a little bit further. So I ran in college, I ran in high school. I ran for Marshall University, which was Marshall College at the time. We won conference championships. So I'm a good runner at the Division II level. I was the captain there, and I did so well there. And my undergrad was also in sports management. And so I ended up transferring out kind of my fifth year. After I used my eligibility and couldn't run anymore, I transferred to Southern New Hampshire University, which was in Manchester, and it just happened. My mom was living in Manchester, New Hampshire at the time, and I was a sports management major, as I said, and for my internship there, I was the intramural athletics director, and I worked for the athletic director through my relationship with him and through my relationship with the current cross-country coach up there. I wasn't eligible, but I still went to the practices and ran with the team, just kind of, when I had time. And so it just happened that coach was leaving to go coach at where he had gone to high school, which is Londonderry High School, which was a really good high school program. And so I was a head coach at Southern New Hampshire University, the men's team, from 2001 until 2005 or 6, I can't remember. It's been a long time. And I've done other coaching as well, high schools and things like that. So in 2006, I believe, I was supposed to run the Manchester Road Race. But I had just stopped coaching, and that was my first time since middle school that I had not been part of a cross-country team, either as an athlete or as a coach. I did a lot of running on my own. I was running a lot, 110 miles a week. I was doing a lot of racing, mostly 5Ks and 10Ks at that point. I hadn't really done anything, 10 milers. I kind of liked the 10-mile distance at that time in my running career. But for some reason, the week before the Mount Washington Road Race, I kind of had a running nervous breakdown, and to be honest, it's probably a full-fledged nervous breakdown. I ended up calling my parents a few days before the race, crying. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I didn't want to do the race, which is weird because I really love that race. I really love, those are the kind of races I like, really hard, really, a lot of ascent. And I stopped running for 5 years. I just don't, still to this day, have no idea. Like I said, I think part of it was I was no longer coaching. The reason I ended up not coaching anymore was it wasn't a full-time job. It was, part-time, and, I get paid for it, but not enough to live off of. And at that point, while I was coaching, part of my coaching contract was they paid for my master's degree, and I have a master's degree in accounting. And so my day job kept moving further and further away from where the university was. And so at the time that I decided to leave, it was like an hour. So I was getting to work at like 7 or something in the morning, working until like 3, driving the hour to Manchester I was living like seacoast area of New Hampshire, Portsmouth, Exeter, coaching until 7 or so, driving home, getting home at 8, doing that all over again, 5 days a week. And then in New England, there's not very many schools, and the things are very spread out as far as Division 2. I was coaching Division 2 as well. And so I'd spend all Saturday driving all over New England coaching. So basically 6 days a week, like all day, either, going to work and then coaching, or spending all day driving to a meet, having the kids race the meet, and then driving back. I tried running on my own, doing my own thing. Like I said, I was running a lot, and I had hit some plateaus as far as, I was running some good times for the 5Ks, not like world class or anything like that, but for, let's say 16, 17, somewhere in there. And I was also at a point, like kind of, I think a lot of newer runners, and even though I'd been running forever at that point, get caught up in like everything has to be a PR. And I think I was in that place. Like I said, I had kind of had this breakdown, and I didn't know what was wrong with me, and I just stopped running from, like I said, from like 110 miles a week to nothing. Then I started working a lot. I worked for a utility company doing accounting, and I just started working more and more and more. I started gaining a lot of weight and getting a lot of like muscle pain, and just from sitting at the desk all day, and then had some other health issues. So after a few years of that, that's when I decided to move down from New Hampshire down here to North Carolina. Just needed a change. I didn't really have a plan. I just needed something different. And when I moved down here, I started walking. So this kind of is a cycle. I didn't have like a running breakdown again, but I did a few years ago have a very serious injury. So I'll kind of try to tell this in chronological order so it doesn't get too confusing. But yeah, so back when I first moved, 2011, I think, I started walking like every day. I would like walk like 3 times a day. I would walk in the morning. At lunch when I went to work, I would walk. And then after I got home from work, I would just walk. Nothing too rigorous, but just trying to be active. And then, after maybe a few months, my neck and shoulder pain pretty much gone away because I was doing stuff, being more active throughout the day. And then it took me maybe a year of just doing that to starting to jog. About 6 months of that where, I was running, but I wasn't really making any progress. And I wasn't even thinking about racing at that time, because I think a lot of people would understand that if you were running at a very high level and you had issues with running and then kind of started running just to kind of get in shape, that you would probably, like what I did, I just kind of shied away from racing. Like I was like, well, I'm never going to be where I was. So I didn't have that kind of motivation. I was like, well, why bother? Then when I started running, I kind of discovered there are a lot of trails around here, which I didn't really realize when I moved to this area. I live in Durham, which is basically 20 minutes from Raleigh and 15 minutes from Chapel Hill. And so I started doing a lot of trail running. Then I started considering doing trail races. And the reason I started doing that was all the courses are different. They're all different. There were all different distances that I had never run before. Like I did a 14-mile race. I did like a 7.5 mile race. And so I didn't feel like the same kind of pressure to be like, well, I'm doing a 5K, so now I'm so much slower than I was before. Like these are races and courses I'd never done before. But I was doing well in them. As far as place-wise, I still wasn't that fast, but I think smaller fields in a lot of trail races, it's I was top 20 or whatever. So that was motivating for me. I was having a lot of luck with that. And then I fell in a trail race. I was doing the Mountains to Sea trail race. They have a 12 mile and a 50K. and I slipped on a bridge, and I fell off the bridge. And now it sounds more, well, it wasn't like a high bridge. It wasn't like I fell like to 3 floors, but I fell off of a bridge like over a stream, and I destroyed my left ankle. I broke it in 3 places, or 3 different bones, and now I have, it's metal basically. I mean, their bones are still in there, but on the outside bone I have like a 5-inch plate, and that has 7 screws holding it all together. And then on the inside bone, the bigger, shin bone basically, I have 2 like 4 or 5-inch screws, because the very bottom of the bone just snapped off, and so they had to basically drill it back in to keep it. So that's where Tin Man comes from. That's my when I did that and I was in the hospital and thinking about it. I'm kind of a pun kind of person, and my actual trail name from my trail running club is Streak, and I thought about Tin Man from The Wizard of Oz. So Tin Man is my ankle's trail name, and my ankle's name is Jack Haley, which is, he's the actor that played the Wizard of Oz in the original movie. So that's where MountTinMan, that's where that comes from. But since I got that injury, I had about a year where I raced really well. Like, I lost a lot of weight. I met my wife. She was a volunteer at that race, and so she went out to the woods to wait with me. We had never met, for the paramedics to come out, and then we just started talking after that, and that's how we met. She was also a runner. She's not a trail runner. She does a lot of road marathons. So I started running with her and doing road stuff, which I hadn't done since living in New Hampshire. And what that meant was I started getting a lot faster. That 1 year after I broke my ankle and met my wife, I was like winning. I'm not winning. I was in the top 3 in a lot of races, local trail races, and anything from 10 to 14 to 20 miles. If you're local to North Carolina, there's the Uwharrie race, which you've seen me wear the hat before. They have an 8, a 20, and a 40. I came in 3rd in the Uwharrie 20 in 2015. So that was a good year. But then after that, because of my imbalance, because I don't have the same range of motion in my left ankle, I just kept getting stress fractures over and over and over again. Not in the same place. It was just every bone, like in my leg. I was training for trying to run with my wife, trying to do some road marathons, and a month out every time I would get my left shin or my right hip or whatever. I was just, if I wasn't getting a stress fracture, I tore my calf. So I kind of got discouraged again, and I stopped running again, and that was about 3 years ago. Had tried to do so many marathons. The one I made it to healthy, it's a Chicago marathon, I think maybe in 2015, but I got a tooth infection and had to have a root canal the day before the race. And we were in Chicago. It was like kind of this emergency thing on Saturday before the race, and I still tried to run the race. I did well, maybe first 17 miles, and then all the painkillers wore off, and I ended up like walking for a bit. I had started a couple of waves ahead of my wife, and so I just kept walking because I was like, well, I'm just gonna try and finish the race with her, and I did. Even that was a struggle though. Just the last 3 miles I ran with her, but I almost didn't make that. So I quit again. I just was like fed up with it, and I gained a lot of weight, and right now I'm like almost 190. The year I was telling you before, when I had the really good running, I was a 155. So I've put on a lot of weight, and about a year and a half ago, I started training for ultras. Just, again, kind of that thing where it's like, now in a trail situation, I am not as fast as I was. I've got a long way to go. So let me try ultras. Let me do that. And thinking that like I will lose weight in the process. it didn't really happen. I lost maybe 10 pounds. I was right around 200 when I first started. I made it down to like 185, but I have to be really good as far as like my eating and do big mileage stuff like that. What that rolls into is my next training cycle is going to be, I'm going to be doing a lot of more strength training. I used to lift a lot when I was working in the office. I would go to the gym a lot. And, the pandemic came. I've been working from home and, everything was closed, obviously. And it just struck me the other day, I've been trying to do some free weights here at the house, but it just struck me the other day that, oh, things are open again. And somebody mentioned Planet Fitness. I had no idea because I'd always used the gym at work. There's one like 5 minutes down the road. So that's going to be added into my next training cycle. So I've started doing that. I've gone twice already this week. And I'm going to try and go every other day, at least, but probably just every other day, because what I'm doing right now is like just circuit stuff, trying to get back into just kind of overall fitness. When I really get into it, I'll do more. I typically do more targeted, like, I'm just doing, biceps and triceps and a couple of other things, and then the next day do a different body part, and I would lift like 4 or 5 days a week. Again, I'm just trying to get generally in shape first and then go from there. Yeah, so those are my next 2 races. The Mount Washington, which like I said, I have this history with, so I'm going back. I'm gonna, what they say, something like slay that dragon, or just face that demon kind of thing. And it, like I said, I like that kind of race. So it's not a demon where like I ran the race and I had a bad race, or I didn't finish the race. It was just something that got triggered in me that I didn't do it. So even though I'd done it before. So that's kind of the, like, okay, I'm ready to go back and just do this race. I've got that's in like 2 months. I don't expect to lose a lot of weight between now and then, but I hope the gym will help, especially with like climbing legs, and I'll start my training. I don't think I'm going to do too much different as far as my running mileage goes. The plan I used before, like I said, was really successful as far as like being able to complete the race and complete it in the time that I wanted to do it in. But I am going to add in, there was no intensity in that last training block. It was just, okay, let's see if I can get through a training block without getting injured. So it was kind of a very low intensity, a lot of mileage. I was doing back-to-back long runs, 30 miles on Saturday and 20 on Sundays. And then the rest of the week was pretty, like Tuesdays was 4 miles. Wednesdays started, I think, at 10, and throughout the plan got up to 15. And then Thursdays was 6 miles, and I had Monday and Friday off. So I'm going to really try for that 4 on Tuesday and the 6 on Thursday to be more, I don't know if I'm going to do like speed work, but I'm going to try and drop into the 8s or the 7s, which if I'm in shape and I've been training like for marathons, that's a piece of cake. But from where I'm coming from and what I've been doing, I may have dropped into the 8s a couple of times this training block, but I was so focused on like, what am I going to need to do for running 100 miles that I didn't really, if it happened, it happened, but I didn't really force that. Yeah. And the Midstate Massive in October, and I may do, people are going to think I'm crazy, but I may do this race called the Firebreak 50 miler. That was my first 50 miler I did last year, but it's in a month. And so I still have obviously the endurance and stuff like that from the 100 miler, but we'll see how my Achilles does this week, the next couple of weeks. If it's still bothering me, I probably won't do that. But if it's going well, then I'll probably hop in and do that. So I appreciate you watching the video, and I will, next week I'll have more like action footage as far as like running, and some news on how that's going, how the lifting's going, how the, I should have footage. I know people have been watching for the last few months. every time I'm running outside, I'm running in Umstead. Well, I probably will still go there, but not very often, because I'm not racing there anymore, and now I can go other places and focus on other trails. So, all right, thanks for tuning in, and if you could give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, that would be amazing. And I will talk to you soon. All right, thank you.